So overnight, if you've been following what's been going on in Ukraine, you may have seen some positive news. At least yesterday in the stock market, there was positive signs. The Dow jumped yesterday on news that it looked like peace talks were actually working and that Vladimir Putin was going to be pulling back out of the capital of Ukraine and stopping military advancements in the northern part of that country. And at play is the Donbass region, that there would be at least some discussion about Russia taking full control over that area. But that doesn't appear to have happened. In fact, yesterday, so the real question this morning is like, who the hell is lying? Who's lying here? Because right now you have Vladimir Zelensky saying, we're cautiously optimistic, but please continue to send us weapons because we don't really believe Putin. Then you have the Russian side, which says we're pulling back, like we're pulling back our troops from that region. But then you have Western media, which is all over this, of course. Western media is like saying, don't believe it, don't believe the hype. They were almost immediate to come out. I was watching this unfold, and almost the articles started hitting the wire services were like, don't believe it, don't believe it, don't pay attention to it. It was preemptive even before the, when there was sort of news of what might happen, the preemptive headlines were, Russia may say this, but we're not going to believe them. Right. Yeah, and then you had the stories yesterday in the Donbass region. These are stories you won't see in the mainstream media. 7 injured, 1 killed amid Ukrainian forces hitting the Donbass region. So, okay, so who's telling the truth here, right? And the White House is basically saying, we don't believe him, we don't believe Putin, so we're just going to continue to do what we're doing, and we're going to continue to funnel money. You had a number of White House officials coming out overnight basically saying the same thing. Like, we're going to continue to support, and the money is going to continue to flow. The weapons will continue to flow. And so it's very difficult to really get on the ground, boots on the ground assessments of what's actually happening here at the time. And I should say, as I pulled up some different information from different areas, you have some reports from The Guardian and others in Ukraine saying we're still seeing forces here. We're still seeing attacks happening. So again, it's the fog of war. You just remember, guys, you have to cut through all of the BS with the mainstream media. The Western media wants war. CNN wants war. They do not want peace. The mainstream television, we saw CNN this weekend saying, peace talks are uncomfortable. Yeah, they're really uncomfortable. Peace talks are uncomfortable. I was watching this weekend, CNN was like, watch our special coming up, Zelensky versus Putin. I was like, what kind of documentary is that you just threw together with, no thanks. But I don't know. I don't know the point I was going to say because I got distracted.
I always love that quote and I say this all the time that Wesley Clark said is like, when you're a hammer, every problem has to look like a nail. And the thing is, like, our U.S. military is a hammer, and it's like they're not just going to hang the hammer up. That hammer needs something to do. It's like you're just going to either have this great big hammer and just let it go to waste. No, you're going to go out and you're going to find things. It's like we're constantly looking for nails that we can use our hammer on, and it's not good.
Right. The point I was just going to make is that, it does seem like the American industrial complex needs a war, but they've had one. Why that war is not sexy enough, I don't know. They've had several. The war in Ethiopia continues to be in a very precarious place. Syria, I hate to keep bringing up these same locations, but there are still people dying and hurting to greater effect than just Ukraine. Ukraine is awful, but so is Yemen. So is Syria. So is Ethiopia. And we shouldn't just be seeking out the sexiest war for our Twitter handles.
And by the way, we should say that, it's not just CNN, it's Fox News also. I mean, you have people like Sean Hannity, who has been, it's sort of the opposite right now of Tucker. It's been interesting to watch this unfold. Like, Tucker is totally anti-war, right? And then you have Sean Hannity, who literally is wearing a CIA pin on his lapel. He literally is wearing a CIA pin and basically trying to really dress down Tulsi Gabbard. I don't know if you caught this last night, really taking her to task for saying, we gotta watch the propaganda.
He knows who his base is. He panders to his base.
I guess, but why is Tucker...
But his base doesn't necessarily want war. More recent surveys show that only 35% of Americans support engagement in Ukraine.
Right, but if you look at Sean Hannity's hardcore fans, his hardcore base, they're rah America.
Yeah, they are that 35%.
Yeah,
I get. Yeah, they're definitely the Hannity crowd.
35% watch your Hannity.
What would you have? I mean, what would someone have to pay you to wear a CIA lapel pin? I mean, Think about like a lying organization that literally foments war around the world, that has brutally killed people around the world. Like, you would wear a CIA pin on your lapel? Are you kidding me? But yet
some people are for that,
I guess. And
Mike Pompeo doesn't even do that, does he?
Well, I think it'd be great if we forced the CIA to always wear those CIA pins. I mean, you think about how much more difficult it would be doing their espionage around the world.
CIA-ing.
Yeah.
Did QAnon
whatever there is,
did
the
QAnon
CIA
come out
does.
and say that that's him saying he's CIA candidate?
I don't know. But he last night attacked Tulsi Gabbard and really dressed her down, and really is pushing for like a nuclear war. He's like, look, if Putin uses any kinds of weapons of mass destruction, any kind of chemical weapons, we should use nuclear weapons and wipe them off the face of the planet. So this is the talking point now coming from Sean Hannity with his CIA pin.
If Vladimir Putin wanted to negotiate, he would have done it a long time ago. He's not willing to. And if he wants to use chemical, biological, and nuclear weapons, he's got to know that his entire country is going to be blown off the face of the earth. I pray to God we never get to that point.
No, you're
so
really,
will yours, Guy.
Right.
It goes both ways.
Like, you think you'd be fine with that and your CIA pin? How many more pins can you add to that lapel, by the way? Why don't you put the Ukrainian pin on there? Why are you not putting,
It's not
Why don't
pins,
you put your
Clayton.
sponsors on there?
It's flair. You have to have a minimum number of flair.
Yeah, maybe his producer's like, Sean, you are wearing the minimum amount of flair.
Right. You're wearing a CIA pin. Where's your FBI pin? Where's all the other pins? But I mean, like, literally calling for, like, let's just use them. I pray to God that we don't get, you're not praying to God.
And if he wants to use chemical, biological, and nuclear weapons, he's got to know that his entire country is going to be blown off the face of the earth. I pray to God we never get to that point. But that's always been a threat. And it remains a threat here, and we can't cower in fear based on the fact that we've had mutually assured destruction pretty much for all a lifetime.
So that's okay. So we're all going to be mutually assured destruction. That's okay. We've been living with it. So let's just do it. Let's just do it. Look at Tulsi Gabbard. She's like,
I love her face. She's like, oh, Sean.
What
Yeah.
are you talking
Sean.
about?
I cannot abide this crap.
She's like, I want to go back onto the other show that Tucker hosts where he is anti-war. Can I do that? And where this person's not wearing a CIA lapel pin? I mean, this is unbelievable kind of talk, but this is what you're hearing from the mainstream media.
Do you get that in the gift shop at some Washington, D.C.?
Daniel in chat said he's putting his foot in his mouth.
It's a good one.
But look, CNN's, there's a colossal attack happening despite Russia's claim to pull back.
Well, yes, but also Russia has not exactly said how they intend to pull back. And they are right now saying, we're going to keep the Donbass. We went in there already. We are welcomed there. That's pretty much going to happen. And that at least seems like something that we can I say we can take that to the bank? It does seem like they're saying we're keeping Crimea. We have been. For a while.
And by the way, he's like, that is off the table. Like, any discussions about, like, we're keeping Crimea, so you can take that off the table in the discussions. And by the way, we want the Donbass region. Can you please stop attacking ethnic Russians in the Donbass region? But that happened again last night, where 7 injured, 1 killed, as Ukrainian forces continue to shell that area. And if you listen to what they're saying, they have been saying now for years that they want protection for those areas. And that's what they want. They want right on the front page, like literally of the pamphlet that Russia is handing out, is we want the demilitarization of Ukraine and the denazification, and we want them to stop attacking ethnic Russians in the Donbass region.
Which is interesting because the United Nations and NATO also want the denazification of Ukraine. They said so as recently as in the last 3 years. But now that they want to back Ukraine and they want to be seen as the white hats inside Ukraine, they pretend that they were never before critical of Ukraine, which is it's false. And we mustn't forget, right, because of the media cycle.
So,
yeah,
again,
but
we're trying
the
to cut
best way
through
to denazify a country is to give them weapons.
Right. Which the United States has done for years. Again, we have funneled weapon after weapon after weapon to these Nazis in this region. And by the way, called out about it. I mean, this was absolutely blatantly called out. Members of Congress called it out. Like, why are we funneling money to these Nazis in Ukraine? Why are we doing that? And now suddenly you're not allowed to talk about it. Like, oh, forget that we were doing that.
Right.
Yeah,
We
'cause
can rewind the tape around the Trump scandal, right? Around the reason he was impeached was holding back those weapons, which he actually ended up giving him. But there were plenty on the right who were at the time saying, why are we giving weapons to Ukraine? We shouldn't be doing that. But now they're all about it, right? At the time, they had legitimate reasons to be concerned about Ukrainian infrastructure, but those concerns have gone out the window now that we've chosen a side so blindly. But
Like,
really,
you can't
when
even
you
walk
see
down the street.
you can't even walk down the street.
You can't even walk down the street as a Nazi in Canada or America. You know, like you
Well,
get
I know,
punched
and you've tried.
yeah.
Sorry.
No, but like Canada, look at Canada. This recently, you know, the whole trucker convoy was said it was delegitimized because there were some Nazis there, and now they're taking the money out of their bank accounts. It's such a bad thing. But when they're on the other side of Russia, well, we can accept that.
Yeah, there is. Let's see, where is? I'm trying to pull up. I want to try to pull up the. Oh, yeah, here we go. I pulled up the wrong ones here. But this is February 2016. U.S. quietly enables funding for Ukrainian neo-Nazi-led Azov regiment. Oh, really? CIA manages training program for Ukrainian paramilitary report. This is in January. Okay, this is January
Of this year.
Of this year. Here's more. U.S. is arming and assisting neo-Nazis in Ukraine while Congress debates prohibition. This is 2018, guys. Look at this, 2018. I mean, it goes on. America's collusion with neo-Nazis, 2018. Neo-fascists play an important official or tolerated role in U.S.-backed Ukraine.
Right. And the same headlines are repeated internationally through the United Nations, through NATO, right? This was absolutely a position.
But now you hear from like, oh, Putin says he wants to denazify Ukraine. Don't believe him. Don't believe the
we
narrative.
already did believe that. This was a foregone conclusion.
Where our own press is telling us this. Own members of our own Congress are telling us this, standing up and saying, you cannot continue to funnel money to Nazis in Ukraine. But don't talk about it now. Pretend like it didn't even happen. Like
I would love
pretending like last night didn't happen.
I would love to see what the United States would do if there was a militia of Nazis in Mexico building a base and having like we're sending them javelin missiles, or not we're sending them, but they had javelin missiles, they had tanks. Like, what would we do?
Right.
We wouldn't just sit here and be like, hey, you know, that's
I'm sure we'd be fine with it. I'm sure
Yeah,
we would. I'm sure
totally
that
fine.
we would totally be fine with it. So,
But no, the Monroe Doctrine doesn't allow that anyway.
We're cutting through the fog on all of this, right? So what is the truth? Well, good question, right? We know what is being said. Now it's a matter of getting reports on the ground from actual journalists who are there to give us these stories. Because if politicians are telling us, if a politician's lips are moving, they're probably lying. So now the mayor of the northern Ukrainian city of Chernihiv, am I saying that right? Chernihiv, dismissed Moscow's claim of a scaled-back operations following what he describes as a colossal attack. The city was under fire from Russian airstrikes while shelling continued through the night. Now, this was an area that Putin had said they were moving forces out of. Okay. No breakthroughs. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said Wednesday there were no breakthroughs following a Russia-Ukraine in-person negotiations in Istanbul, but welcomed Ukraine's written demands. So that's where we are right now. But we do have additional information about what's happening with the U.S. side of this. And there's a big question this morning as to did President Biden let the cat out of the bag? Well, we showed you this video yesterday, but now the Pentagon is responding. So remember that video where President Biden is standing there with the airborne
troops in Poland.
Yeah, with the airborne division. And apparently they didn't know that cameras were rolling and that audio was being recorded. And the president is meeting with these troops. First of all, why are U.S. troops there? And why are they like battle ready to go in? He has this discussion with them about what they are about to see in Ukraine. And he explains that you will see this. So did he let the cat out of the bag? Let me play that video again. And then I want to show you what the Pentagon is saying about it this morning.
Average citizen, look at how they're stepping up. Look at how they're stepping up. And you're going to see when you're there, and some of you have been there.
Some of you have been there.
You're going to see women.
Some of you have been there in Ukraine in the battle? Like what?
But don't tell anybody.
We're
supposed to think that we're not going in there.
Young people
Well, there's
stand in the middle in front of a damn tank, just saying, I'm not leaving. I'm holding my ground.
Okay. So then he was asked about this, like, the next day, to which he says, that's not true. I didn't say that. I didn't say that at all.
Are you worried that other leaders in the world are going to start to doubt that America is back if some of these big things that you say on the world stage keep getting walked back?
What's getting walked back?
It made it sound like, just in the last couple days, it sounded like you told U.S. troops they were going to Ukraine. It sounded like you said it was possible the U.S. would use a chemical weapon, and it sounded like you were calling for regime change in Russia, and we know...
None of the three occurred.
None of the three occurred?
None of the three.
Mr. President?
Nothing. It didn't happen. Didn't happen. Don't worry about it. Well, now the Pentagon is coming out and having to walk this back a little bit, because the question this morning, did he leak, like when he was meeting with these troops, did he say something he shouldn't have, that there are secret operations unfolding? Mm-hmm. Because we already know that CNN is reporting this. This is CNN, by the way. U.S. troops in Poland are training Ukrainians on how to use weapons sent by the West. They're in Ukraine. So they're admitting that it's there. But now the Pentagon is coming out this morning saying, maybe not so fast. I don't believe we are in, I love this. I don't believe we are in the process of currently training military forces from Ukraine in Poland. Okay, so where is this then? Or where is it happening then? However, the general added that there have been liaisons with the Ukrainian troops in Poland that are being given advice, but argued that's different than I think what you're referring to with respect to training.
Okay, Boris Johnson, how do you define a gathering or a party, right? So it's not a training session.
Right.
It's a liaison where we advise you. That's
Right.
not a training session, because we
Well,
already
like,
covered
like-
that.
We already know that there's special forces over there. Like, we
Yes.
already know that we're already there. And people have to know that.
Well, and we've had our reporting here on this show. I've had members of the families of special forces and members of the military confirm to us that they are there, that they have been, and that they were there months ahead of time. So
Let's let Philip say
Yeah,
what
go
he's
ahead.
trying to
No,
say.
I was just gonna say, like having a general go, well, I'm not sure if we're doing that. Like, the reporter's response should be like, well, you're a general. Is there, I don't know, maybe anybody you can ask? Like, can you maybe look into this a bit? Because who's doing it then? If you don't know.
That's one of my dad's like big comebacks. So my dad will be like, "Oh, do you want a coffee?" And you say, "I don't know." He goes, "Who should I ask?" If you don't know. So,
Yeah, like, seriously.
You're the general, but you don't. I mean, I'm fine to accept that the president is there and just talking, and he's like, "You're gonna see this, and you're gonna see that," and you're like, "Okay, Grandpa," like that's sort of what you think. I mean, it just sounded like an avuncular kind of, back in my day kind of speech. But you would hope that then there's like a real Top Gun like general, which we're going to talk about Top Gun later, that comes in and says like, okay, but this is really the briefing. It's this, here's the map, like that they have it down, right? But now they're repeating like, not really, we're doing that.
The White House then later clarified and said during a press briefing later on Monday, the White House Communications Director, Kate Bedingfield, told reporters there's regular interaction between Ukrainian soldiers in Poland and U.S. troops that the president saw on the trip. Insisting that Biden did not accidentally reveal compromised information. Really? Like, again, who's telling the truth here? Like, we know that special forces have been there. We know that they've been in Ukraine. They're getting weapons. We're sending them an enormous amount of weapons. So we're there doing the training. But we're just liaisons. They're just liaisons.
Right. It's like Boris Johnson's work events. They weren't parties. They were
Right.
work events.
They were just work events.
That's it.
There was a lot of music and dancing.
Troops are having work events,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah,
Not training.
They just said interaction. So I mean, they were hanging around playing checkers and
Right.
drinking tea.
Like
They
Pompeo
could be
said,
having
they
support
lie.
groups.
They just spin words and be like, okay, how can we make this sound like it's not as threatening as it is? No, they're just having meetings. They might be holding bazookas while they're having them, but they're still meetings.
Come on, man.
Sorry, Joe. It's true, man. I mean, this is what's happening. And, they're trying to walk this back about our involvement there. Just call it what it is. We are at war with Russia. I mean, what else do you need to say other than just calling it by that name? We're supplying all the weapons. We have soldiers there doing the work and training, and we're supplying as much intelligence and information as we can. We are propping up through proxy all of the weapons that are in that country right now are coming from the United States. Make no mistake about it. So what else do you need? I mean, you want to call it something else?
No,
I mean, that's what it is.
no, I don't.
If you like this content, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Also, we have a membership program. For the price of a cup of coffee once a month, you can support independent journalism just by going to morninginvest.com/join.
You get access to exclusive videos, plus the ability to join and chat with us live. We really appreciate your subscription, and you are supporting independent journalism.